Hi, Emmanuel.
Hi, good evening, Apoorva.
Good evening.
So, if you a disclaimer, all of us on the call have stalked you on LinkedIn. So I hope that's no
That's
trouble.
okay. No, no, no.
Okay, great. So, guys, I think we've already spoken about Apoorva and her LinkedIn profile, and we've kind of got a gist of it. So, Apoorva, CAGR, which is Collective Analyst Group for us, we are a small group of people. Uh, Ideally, the headcount on a call remains between 25, 30, 20, 25 mostly. And we have just lately discovered private markets or private equity for that matter. And we just covered a little bit about venture debt, just the basic, in terms of a few things that we could figure out that are publicly available. I'm sure it's a very new space, and there is not much content or not much research available publicly. So all of us are keen to interact with you, and it's a call. It's a normal call. We're not on a webinar mode, so people can participate while we interact. And yep, that's the major gist of it. So to begin with, the first question that most of us have is, how did you figure out venture debt as a career choice, and why did you pursue it, and how has it been so far?
So pleased to meet all of you, and of course, Emmanuel, we at Stride work very closely with. So glad to be a part of this session and very happy to address, candidly any questions that you have. To start with the first question. So, I started my career with HSBC in investment banking in their M&A profile. And although I spent significant amount there, but I felt that the deal making was so slow that what you become good at is your Excel skills, modeling skills, PPT skills, but what deal closure, negotiation, handling people, that does not come because HSBC is although it's a global bank, but their India presence in M&A is very limited. And even if you see any other global bank, like whether it's JP Morgan or Credit Suisse or anybody, they haven't been able to do a good job at M&A in India because India is a market where M&A is very limited. India does not see a lot of M&A. And whatever small M&As happen, that is also largely with your, vendors, etc., your boutique iBanks, which are domestic in nature. So I spent some time there and then I moved to Xander because, I was not getting too many deal closure experiences, although I was working on a lot of deals, and then I joined Xander, which is a global private equity fund with a structured credit desk. So there, I think, my credit underwriting skills and, just looking at businesses from a very through and through way, going through diligence reports, whether it's financial, tax, commercial, forensic, because in all our deals that we did, and we did a lot of traditional brick and mortar kind of deals. So in more FMCG, manufacturing, schools, hospitals, those kind of things. So I think my credit experience really solidified there. But then what happens is, irrespective of sector, once it is a stable brick and mortar traditional space, essentially you start looking at your interest coverage, debt service coverage ratios, and काफी monotonous हो जाता है because आप हर business को उसी तरीके से देखते हो कि cash flow serviceability क्या है. Even if it's an FMCG or a hospital or a school or whatever, essentially it's, is your cash flow enough to service? And is the asset value enough as security? What is the cover on the debt and these kind of things. And then 2018 came, and 2018 was, when I'm not sure how many of you guys would remember, but that was a, I would say collapse of wholesale lending. So ILFS collapsed at that point in time and it went into NCLT and there was moratorium. And essentially it had a trickle down effect on the entire ecosystem because ILFS was so big. And then Franklin Templeton, went down because of their exposure in wholesale lending books, commercial papers and wholesale lending NBFCs. So that kind of spiraled, and I understood that the flavor had become retail lending. So, everybody wanted to go into housing finance and, home, everybody wanted to do home loans, retail book. and that was not really something that I was I was looking forward to. And traditional brick and mortar had become monotonous, so that was just the time venture debt as a concept was picking up in 2018. There was only one fund at that point in time, which was Innoven, and बाकी किसी का कुछ ऐसा presence नहीं था. And I had read a lot on venture debt because at that point in time Xander also, the firm I was at earlier, wanted to enter venture debt. So I knew about all players, I knew what was happening, and then I thought that, the startup, that was my introduction to the startup ecosystem, that there is so much activity there. It's far more interesting. You see different business models. You meet some very amazing people, very ambitious people. You gain a lot of perspectives. So I thought that, अब traditional space से थोड़ा और पहले जो new age businesses वाला है वहां जाना है. And then I started applying to a lot of VCs actually. But it was when I was applying to these VCs, I think one VC fund manager had sent my resume to Ishpreet, and Ishpreet was just setting up the fund. I didn't know him from earlier, uh, and I still remember early 2019 is when he had interviewed me, and that time I thought that it's a new sector because venture debt uh, was emerging, and it married two things. One, the fact that you can be a generalist, look at different sectors, more exciting things, gain a lot from different perspectives, and two, the credit perspective that are already built over the years. So yeah, then I thought, if not VC, then let us try venture debt because I think my acumen lies there. And I joined Stride right when the first fund was getting set up. So obviously I joined very early on, practically the first or second person to join, and two of us joined in the same week. Yeah. So it's been
Great.
good so far. It has been a very interesting journey. The asset class has evolved. Back in 2019, it was a $200 million asset class, which was nothing, right? What is 1,500 crores for
Mhm.
entire India in an asset class? It was nothing, but today it's close to 8,500 crores, like $1 billion. So it has grown a lot.
Great. So, Apoorva, we have a mix of three people. We have investors on this call. We have people who invest in public markets, private markets, and or every avenue where an alpha can be created. Second, we have people who would want to become managers, portfolio managers like yourself, and kind of command where the institutional capital flows. And the third is people who are trying to make it into the industry. So I think for at all three levels, I think when you joined Stride in 2019, risk is a factor that keeps playing like a violin in the background. Even for somebody who is entering the business, do they want to join something as young as Stride in 2019? For somebody who wants to manage portfolios and who would want to build a career and not just seek a job, is joining a young enterprise, going to give them that kind of bandwidth or more things to do and more things to explore. And as an investor, I don't know how, probably, I'm sure it was a roller coaster to close the first round or the first fund. And once the first fund is through its second, third, fourth year, then it becomes easier to, launch the second and the third fund. And we'll be talking about all the new funds that you're launching as well. But just to play on that risk factor, what would you address to all these three sections in terms of risk?
So I'd say that, in your career, you have to take risk at some point in your life. If because that time I remember I had a job offer from Stancy, which was at twice the remuneration at Stride, and I'd spoken to Shpreet and said that I'm joining you, but with a significant haircut. I should be taken care of in the next 1 year or so, and that he said that don't worry. But what did I have to lose? See, venture debt was a new asset class. The most I could have lost it is that I joined. एक साल मेरा वहां जाता, मैंने कुछ नया सीखा होता, ठीक है, commercial wise I would have taken that impact for 1 year, but then I could have joined the mainstream again. But on the flip side, if you have joined an asset class which is just starting, you are one of the first few people who know that asset class, and it always helps, right? Your career trajectory will be very different if you are a first mover in anything. So I think you have to take that calculated risk and take that. And especially since a lot of you are very young, especially in your earlier life, what do you have to lose? ठीक है, 6 महीने नहीं पसंद आया, you will find a job. But what if पसंद आया and you stick to it? Because if you look at so many even of my peers and colleagues, every 2 years they are shifting jobs. Honestly, beyond a point, it'll become taxing. You will, there's the concept of Monday blues. You will start hating your work so much that every Sunday night you'll have that gloomy mood that of Monday aa gaya. So if you want to come out of that, and I think I don't have, since the time I joined Stride, I don't think of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every day is work day. जभी भी काम है करो, and that is only when you are settled with the kind you are liking the kind of quality of work. So I think join an organization which gives you that room to grow. Even if it is some risk in your career, it's fine. You will learn new things, but always join a place where you can express yourself, where you feel that people are entrusting you with more responsibility. You are seeing full closure cycles for anything, especially financial services में कई बार हो सकता है that you become so just a brick in the wall kind of thing कि एक ही काम कर रहे हो साल 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 and you are never seeing the entire deal cycle also. But in a smaller organization, if you have seen full deal closures, it really adds value. A lot of very young folks have seen multiple deal closures, and a lot of very senior folks have seen hardly any deal closures. So I think any organization which gives you that room for growth to express yourself, gives you more responsibility, challenges you, you are doing something which you hadn't done before, is great. There's nothing, it is a call that you should definitely take.
Great. And Apoorva, what about investors who would want to? Also, one thing that everybody wanted to know is what is the minimum check size that you accept at Stride as an investor?
Hmm.
A, B, what are the returns like? And what about investors who are approached by a young fund, let's say their first fund is in making? Uh, what should be considered in those scenarios?
So I think first fund should always be a small fund, right? Because there you are inculcating trust. And trust is something that builds over time. Obviously, people won't give you money from the get-go. So the first fund for Stride was $50 million, dollars, and then the second was $200 million. So that is the jump that we took. And it's not necessary that हर बार fund size बढ़ाना ही है. Fund 3 was same as $200 million because we feel that is the adequate fund size. So I'm not saying that that is your measure of success. Your fund size should always be a measure of कितना बड़ा market है, तुम्हें कितने deployments करने हैं, तुम्हारा fee, should be sufficient to pay off the salaries, and all of that goes into deciding a fund size, nothing else. But what I want to say is that you have to start small. You can't think of a very big fund. And us fund may do something which is brilliant, that you can show देखो मेरा performance, so that people can trust you and you decide what is the adequate next fund for you, the size of the next fund. So yes, first it was challenging, but the good thing is that now there is a lot of government support. So any new fund manager, SIDBI's fund of funds, where you can apply on the website of the government, and there is SRI, which is essentially Self-Reliant India. It is a SBI CAPS fund, that is also a government initiative. Both of these can take up to 20% exposure in terms of their share in your fund. So these are great initiatives, and they encourage first time fund managers. So for us, in that 400 crore fund, about 100 was SIDBI. You can imagine. And
Great.
once you get that, then it becomes easier. You speak to a couple of family offices, network, all of that. But I think have a team which is completely like blinkers on and only focusing on the fund. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए तुम ये भी कर रहे हो, कुछ और भी कर रहे हो, कुछ और भी कर रहे हो. लोगों को confidence नहीं आता that this person will be able to pull off. And start small, get some institutional capital, use government support, use references. References work magically. Cold reach outs are very tough for a first time fund manager.
Yeah. So references, I think, are the key point here, both for I think as in career opportunity and fund opportunity. I think on
Yeah,
both sides.
yeah, yeah.
Great. Apoorva, just out of the mainstream discussion, all of us on the call before you joined, we're talking about how women in finance, I think is been a pain point for a very long time, and I think even though the dynamics are changing, I think the CXO level positions or top 1 percentile of positions, we still don't see a lot of women. And you have maneuvered and crisscrossed and be reached there, and I think you have an amazing story to tell. And I see you work 12 hours a day at least. I mean, and you make us work 12, 13 hours a day as well. So, I mean, what is it? Is it still difficult? Should women aspire to be you in 10 years down the line, 8 years, 9 years down the line? What's the dynamics like?
So, it's not, there is, I would say, much lesser discrimination now than it was, say, earlier, because at every stage, things have improved. I don't think अब कोई ऐसा issue है. People understand VCs, VDs, private equity funds, structured credit, every place has women. I think for you to just be in the workplace is very important. So what I mean, Emmanuel, कि कुछ लोग अपना करियर काफी अच्छे से स्टार्ट करते हैं, and I don't think marriage is a stopping point for anybody. But after you have kids, a lot of people drop out. Sometimes proactively, it's not that कोई कह रहा है तुमको, it's just the priorities they set. If for those 2 3 years people stick on somehow and don't take that step, I think that will be solved, because it's only that people start dropping off at 35, 36, which is the ripe age for you to take senior leadership positions at any organization. And it also conflicts with the time that you probably.
Probably would have kids. Yeah.
But अगर वो 2 3 साल you are able to manage with a lot of support from your family or external support and stay there, then I think that problem will get solved. The reason you see a lot more women in the initial positions, junior positions. The reason you don't have too many at the senior position is because a lot of them have gone in between. So that
Right.
funnel is like an hourglass, that
Mhm.
नीचे है और बीच में फिर बिल्कुल ही नहीं है, because उस एज ग्रुप में फिर बहुत कम लोग हैं जो ऊपर गए फिर. But the good point is, I'll also say that sometimes it is advantageous, because agar if you've stayed that long in your career, then there will be some, I would say speaking opportunities. Everybody looks for diversity, right?
Yeah.
Because वहां पे there will be few women who have reached that space. There will be some opportunities that you get which are not available to other people.
Mhm.
So it's important that people just stick along in the journey.
Great. So all the women on call, I hope that's $1 million advice, by the way. But I hope everybody has taken a note of that. Great. Apurva, now when we look at private space or private equity space, we see so many accelerators mushrooming. We see so many consultants mushrooming. We see a lot of funds mushrooming, aspirational fund managers mushrooming. And by mushrooming, I don't want to undermine them. I'm just saying it's so many of them now. And of course, I'm sure some of them will become banyans and the bigger participants in the ecosystem. Do you think we've hit a point in private equity cycle or private equity markets where there are just too many people serving the ecosystem than there are operators, or than there is need of such a professional ecosystem?
I'll tell you, Emmanuel, that हर स्टेज में काफी लोग बस इसलिए खोल देते हैं क्योंकि किसी और ने खोला हुआ है, या उसको लग रहा है कि दिस इज क्विक मनी मेकिंग मशीन, तो इस सेक्टर में घुस जाओ. बट आई थिंक एनीबडी हु थिंक्स ऑफ इट एज अ मैराथन एंड नॉट एज अ स्प्रिंट, मतलब ये मत सोचो कि मुझे और बड़ा कैसे बनना है, जल्दी जल्दी जल्दी. इट हैज टू बी डू राइट इंस्टेड ऑफ डूइंग फास्ट. And if you are there, the others will weed out. Even if you are the 50th player in that segment, but you are so committed to what you're doing it and you're doing it with full honesty, you will stay. The others who went ahead will weed out. We have not only in funds, funds का भी देख लो, जो बहुत niche funds भी हैं, maybe 100 crore funds, लेकिन उन्होंने अच्छा काम किया है, वो आज भी हैं.
Hmm.
और जो $1 billion फंड्स भी हैं, जिन्होंने बस माइंडलेस डिप्लॉयमेंट किया है, वो आज नहीं है. सिमिलरली स्टार्टअप्स में जो बहुत फास्ट ग्रो कर गए, बस ग्रो कर गए किसी तरह, वो आज नहीं है. जिन्होंने धीरे धीरे ग्रो किया, वो आज हैं. So I think don't there will be a lot of players, and there'll be more and then more and more, because people, India is a very entrepreneurial country. So you will have new fund managers, and you will have new just any asset class, you will have new people. As long as you're sticking to your strategy and doing a good job for your LPs, you don't have to worry about who my competition is. You will find a place for yourself.
Great. So for everyone, LP is limited partners. These are people who invest in the fund as so they're called limited partners, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Apoorva, what about the business side of it? Everybody reads a news or everybody picks up the newspaper and all they see on the front page is this startup got XYZ funding, that startup got XYZ funding. I have founders who come to my office and say, उस startup को पैसे क्यों मिले, हमें क्यों नहीं मिल रहे हैं? And they have no idea of why X was able to raise a 10 crore rupee check at a 100 crore valuation, whereas nobody is asking them or nobody is talking to them. I know network references, who do you know, plays a very big role in this because I think everything boils down to trust. Whether can I trust you with my institutional capital? But what apart from network and what apart from who do you know makes a lot of sense in this space, and what should people who compare themselves to these startups think about it?
So, multiple things actually. First, of course, is you have to reach to the right people. Find out who can connect you to the right set of people. If you are a consumer brand and you are just, going after Axel and Lightspeed, it's no, they are good investors, but they're tech investors. If you are a consumer brand, go to Six Sense, Fireside. So who you are first, which kind of funds and उस fund में किससे बात कर रहे हो, right kind of people, I think. And if you can get a warm introduction, a reference, nothing like it. So that obviously gives you a foot in the door. But once you've gotten the opportunity, couple of things. One, your deck. If you're sending just a deck, what does it show? Like 6, 7 crisp slides, but it should show exactly what is in there for them. So if you are a consumer brand, talk about say CAC, your LTV to CAC, your retention ratio, repeat ratio, your return on ad spend. The same thing is not relevant for a B2B company. There it will be very different. So identify which are the key metrics that should be there as part of that deck. How do you make it extremely crisp to make sure that जो बंदा पढ़ रहा है अगर वो 15 मिनट भी देख रहा है तो it is enough for generating that interest in the person. So be well informed about your sector, have a good deck that can speak for itself, go through warm introductions. And I think once this is for the deck, but if you're meeting, suppose some, investor, storytelling also plays a big part. So, how well conversant you are, because we've seen very good execution people, but वो बिल्कुल ही sell नहीं कर पाते खुद को. So selling is an art in any industry. It is important in any industry, whether you are on fundraising side, whether you are a company, just anything. So I think selling yourself and selling your, I would say, vision, larger perspective is very important. Storytellers always raise more money. So I think वो storytelling अपनी strong करनी बहुत जरूरी है before you pitch. And then of course there are multiple other things also, right? Like people don't want, suppose for example an investor walks in and says बाकी सब तो बकवास है, हम जो कर रहे हैं वो सुनो. So you can't come out as derogatory, you can't come out as extremely arrogant, but at the same time you have to come out as ambitious. So it's a balance of a lot of things once you get that meeting opportunity. But yes, I think you will keep getting better at it once you have faced so many people get so many rejections. किसी भी यूनिकॉर्न का देख लो, ऑक्सीजो ने कुछ 200 रिजेक्शंस मिले थे, तब उनको एक ऑल यू वांट इज वन चेक. So don't ever get disheartened by how many rejections you have gotten. That one check is all you need, and you have to keep trying towards that one check if you really believe that what you're doing is substantial and it is you have a right to win.
Great, great. So, and another thing, Apoorva, now that we have startups and founders coming in and approaching angels mostly for the first check, they've realized that probably going through angels to a VC is better than directly going to VCs. And we've seen a lot of angels, being so active. I want 2 cents on, what is this? What is the angel syndicate network looking like? Because we've seen them also coming up very rapidly. And people who until yesterday were scared to buy a stock worth 1 lakh rupees on public markets are now super comfortable putting 1 lakh rupees in a startup angel axle aggregator model and say, oh, I own 15 startups or I own 10 startups. What's your take on it? Because according to me, I think it's too spread. I think the power law would not work there. It's my thought process. What do you have to say about it?
So obviously इतना disproportionate return है. अगर आप एंजल आपने वो देखा होगा, आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ यू गाइस फॉलोड मामा अर्थ, पीपल हैव मेड लाइक crores and crores of rupees. लाइक किसी ने 1 करोड़ डाला और उसको 400 करोड़ का एग्जिट मिल गया 4 साल में. या
Mhm.
किसी ने 15 lakhs डाला उसको 200 करोड़ का एग्जिट मिल गया. So I think people have seen that such returns can be disproportionate. So if I have, and I'm not saying people start with a very big amount, but people are very comfortable with taking say a 5-10 lakh exposure in the startup ecosystem, that too across multiple, because अगर उसमें से एक भी चला, then it can be a multi bagger for you, which public markets, no matter what small cap, micro cap can't give you, right? So I think that is making people interested in that. In terms of syndicate networks, it also helps you. अगर तुमने एक अच्छा syndicate network से कर लिया है connection, तो वो आपको relevant VC से भी help करवा देते हैं, थोड़ा soft introduction करवा देते हैं. So venture catalyst, is very active. Venture East is active. Let's Venture is active. Then there are multiple small, I would say, accelerator kind of outfits like Titan Capital, All In Capital, Kettleboro. So वो सब हैं. This full list you can get it from other places also. If you ever need, you can reach out through Emmanuel. I can also help you with some introductions there. Whether angel list, VCs, etc. And yeah, so now there are a couple of. I think अभी भी बहुत sophisticated नहीं है angel list and angel syndicate, but हैं और धीरे धीरे improve कर रहा है. See, as people have seen कि क्या वर्क कर रहा है क्या नहीं, वहां पे भी maturity आती है, and you get better kind of people on the syndicate. There is some more, I would say, experience sharing there.
Great. Thank you. So, again, switching gears, we have seen venture debt come in only after venture capital. First is, for somebody on your side of the table, it makes a lot of sense. How would you explain that rationally to somebody on this side of a table, understanding that or knowing that we don't understand why exactly there's a phenomena first? And the second is, um, does this mean that as an ecosystem, venture debt uh, has a limitation, or venture debt does not, is not friendly to the business ecosystem or things like that? So, I mean, why is it that we only back venture capital uh, owned businesses, and why not a normal operator or an operator who doesn't has external capital but is trying to do amazing with the business?
So I'll tell you, because एक तो venture debts के PPM is private placement memo that you file with SEBI. When you get the fund license, you have to define what kind of investments you are doing, right? So you have to make a focused effort ki what is your TG. For all venture debt funds, it will be venture backed companies, right? So there are other debt funds who can look at you, but venture debt fund will only look at venture backed companies because it's a part of the thesis. Now coming back to the question on why otherwise also we can't come in, before VC, because most startups when they start they're loss making, and debt essentially is a burden on you. I'm going to give you debt for 2 years, maximum 3 years. I'm not going to give you debt for 10 years with a 5-year morat. That's not venture debt. So if I'm giving you debt for say 2 years and you are loss making, how will you have the wherewithal to start repaying me? Right? And if that is not going to happen, then I will have the right to sell your business to anyone I want to, which is detrimental to the founder and the company. So essentially, even otherwise, because debt is a liability, वो तुम्हें वापस करना ही है. It should come after you have raised some equity. So how we look at it is, if somebody has raised 100 crores in equity, I can look at a 10 crore debt. Why? Because I feel that ठीक है, अभी loss है. अगर कभी बेचना भी पड़ा, तो इस कंपनी ने 100 करोड़ इक्विटी रेज किया है, तो 10% पे तो बिक जाएगी. और अगर वो 10% पे भी बिकती है तो सबसे पहले मेरे को मेरा पैसा मिलेगा, बिफोर इवन द एंजल इन्वेस्टर गेट्स एनीथिंग, नो मैटर हाउ अर्ली दैट पर्सन केम इन, राइट? Because of the nature of the instrument, debt is
Correct.
also senior to equity. So yeah, I think even common sense wise, founders should take debt only once they have achieved a certain kind of predictable revenue stream. They know how much they are going to burn. There's certain predictability in the unit economics. You have raised some equity. You should know why you are raising debt for. If you start raising debt for funding your losses, वो विचियस साइकिल है। तुम डेट लोगे, तुम डेट ही वापस नहीं करोगे, तो तुमने डेट लिया, लॉस फंड किया, 6 महीने बाद जब डेट लौटाना था तुम्हारे पास पैसे ही नहीं है। इट विल नेवर सॉल्व योर पर्पस। व्हाट शुड यू टेक डेट फॉर? आई एम अ कंज्यूमर कंपनी, I have a working capital, I have to hold inventory. My customers take some time to pay me back. I have a cash conversion cycle of say 60 days. अब वहां पे मैं इक्विटी अगर फंसा दूं तो मेरा बिजनेस रुक जाएगा। एंड एसेंशियली आपका इन्वेंट्री रिसीवेबल इज अ एसेट ऑन योर बैलेंस शीट। Whenever there is an asset on your balance sheet, you can find a liability against it, so you can take debt. Then your balance sheet is matched. Don't start taking debt for funding your losses, because that is a trap. That will not solve any purpose. That might delay the problem, but that will not solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also personal finance 101, by the way. Don't take debt to take care of expenses in life or otherwise. Asset, of course.
Yeah.
For an asset, you should. Great.
Yeah.
And Apurva, so can we be, can one bullet or one liner be that venture debt is technically an instrument that a founder or the current shareholders of the business decide to take when they do not want to further dilute their equity, but they need more capital. It could be for inventory, it could be for growth, it could be for something new that I would want to do. But just because if I raise another round of equity, even if it is 10% of whatever valuation or 15% of valuation, I will have to further liquidate my business, which will result into dilution of existing shareholders and their ownership. And venture debt just bypasses all this and still gives me capital. Is that the sole problem that we're solving?
That is the problem, Emmanuel, and whatever you've said is correct. It of course helps you save dilution. The only thing is you should take debt after a certain point, and you should take debt for the right reasons. That is the only thing. अगर आप थोड़े बड़े बन गए हो, आपको पता है कि आपके बिजनेस में क्या हो रहा है, आप क्लूलेस नहीं हो, सपोज कोई स्पेस टेक कंपनी जिसके पास जीरो रेवेन्यू है, वो सोच रही है कि 5 साल बाद मैं कुछ ऐसा पाथ ब्रेकिंग करूंगा, अगर वो डेट ले ले तो वो कैसे लौटाएगा? देयर इज नो revenue stream that you have visibility for. So after only a certain stage, that's why venture debt also, you will not see it in seed companies. It's mostly in series A to pre-IPO kind of companies. After there's a certain product market fit, revenue, unit economics, equity capital, all of that. And reasons, as Emmanuel said, working capital ho, capex ho, acquisition financing ho. So although venture debt does not have any end use restriction, but जब हम debt देते हैं तो हम देखते हैं कि भाई आप किस चीज के लिए यूज करने वाले हो. You are not over leveraging yourself, and you're not taking debt for the wrong reason, which is not going to solve any purpose for you.
Yeah. So Apurva, when we look at publicly listed businesses, we have seen a trend where businesses that have irregular cash flows or might have higher interest coverage ratios, but uh, probably debt might not just, for example, the entire IT ecosystem.
They've
You
never
look
taken
at-
it.
They've
Yeah.
never taken a, a,
Yeah.
a penny of debt, right? Because their simple thought process is my client pays me in advance or pays
Exactly.
me
कोई आपका
incrementally.
वर्किंग कैपिटल गैप ही नहीं है, आप क्यों लोगे डेट?
Right.
The
Or if
best
we look at,
is customer advance. तुम्हें
yeah.
इंटरेस्ट भी नहीं बेयर करना, वो तुमको पैसा पे कर रहा है, so you'll do the business like that.
Absolutely. And when we look at some other sectors, so I think IT is one of the best sectors where they're totally debt free. Whereas on the contrary, when we look at, let's say, the huge publicly listed like Reliance, one of the largest debt holders in India, or let's say, I would not want to talk about the Adani Group as of now because that will lead into further discussion unfolding and these things. So do you think for venture debt also we should, or I don't know, do we already have such systems in place where we say these sectors do not need debt, and these are the sectors that we would want to give money to? Is that a
एब्सोल्युटली मैनुअल। एंड वही रीजन जो तुम कह रहे हो, आईटी कंपनीज क्यों नहीं लेती डेट? टीसीएस इतनी अच्छी कंपनी, कोई भी बैंक दे देगा, उसको खुद नहीं चाहिए, उसको चाहिए ही नहीं, उसका डेट रिक्वायरमेंट यूज केस ही नहीं है। सो एंड वैसे रिलायंस, अब उसके ऑयल फील्ड्स हैं या उसका इतना रिलायंस रिटेल के प्रॉपर्टीज हैं, इतने सारे स्टोर्स हैं, जियो के टावर्स हैं, ऑप्टिकल फाइबर्स हैं, तो केपेक्स है, so that's an asset. You will take debt for that. So similarly, if you look at our portfolio composition also, you will see a lot of consumer names. 40% is consumer. And it is not that हमने सोचा था कि 40% हम consumer. It's not by design. It is by use case. तो कंज्यूमर में क्योंकि इन्वेंट्री है, वर्किंग कैपिटल है, रिसीवेबल है, आपका खुद के एक्सक्लूसिव बिजनेस आउटलेट्स हैं, तो थोड़ा आपका केपेक्स है, ऑटोमेटिकली यू हैव सो मेनी कंज्यूमर नेम्स। एंड देन यू हैव फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज, बिकॉज वो आपसे डेट लेके आगे लेंड करते हैं, अपना बुक बनाते हैं, बुक डेट्स होते हैं। सो वहां पे, सो you will not see a lot of too many SaaS companies in our portfolio because they don't need that. You will
Yeah.
see a lot of consumer names. For example, not only brands but consumer tech companies, something like Zepto will need, because वो इतने सारे डार्क स्टोर्स खोल रहे हैं, वहां पे रैक्स हैं, आपका डार्क स्टोर का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर कॉस्ट है, so people understand what to take debt for. Yeah.
Great, great. Uh, Thank you for that. And I think that really helps in understanding venture debt a little more than what we all could figure out, in our discussions. Apurva, what do you're at the pinnacle of an institution and of a sector, or of a basic institutional capital, and you would have better uh, vision to the horizon as compared to a lot of other people. What do you think are the next sectors that, irrespective of public, private, small, big, what are few sectors that you think nobody is paying attention to but have a huge potential, both in terms of course, with reward comes risk, but have a huge potential, A, and is somebody really acting on them, or do you think somebody is acting on them?
So I think one AI, generative AI is something which everybody is talking about.
Mhm.
इंडिया अभी भी काफी पीछे है, बहुत सारी जगहों पे काफी एडवांसमेंट हो गई है, बट इफ यू लुक एट द लास्ट 6 months ऑफ वीसी फंडिंग इन यूएस, इट इज ओनली टू एआई कंपनीज, नथिंग एल्स। सिर्फ एआई कंपनीज को जा रहा है पैसा। The same thing will happen in India probably 18 months down the line, when you will see a lot, because उतना lag रहता ही है what happens in US, India, but you will see a lot of AI companies suddenly starting. There will be for graphic designing, for call center operations, just for about anything. So I think generative AI, anybody who starts up in generative AI and who has the knowledge and is doing that with full know-how of how this will help people, is a great step. Of course, regulation का है थोड़ा gray area, इसीलिए risk आता है उसमें, but because suddenly the government can come and say that this is causing problem with the employment
I
opportunity.
think, yeah, but sorry I interrupted, but I think EU has just circulated a regulation day before yesterday, which can act as a preamble for everyone else as well. And that's not very restrictive in terms of what an entrepreneur can try to do with AI. So, I mean, just throwing some light there as well.
No,
But
great. In fact, I should also read it. So yes, AI, I
I'll share.
think, yeah, please share it. So generative AI काफी important होगा in the next couple of years. Also, I think EV in general, a lot of people are doing enough, but there's a lot more to be done, and it will become mainstream in the next 5 years. So petrol engines, diesel engines have already gone. Petrol will also probably, next 5 years, who knows how the government will look at. Nowadays it's they are also taking it very seriously कि क्या क्या phase out करना है, इस the it this is the weight of this vehicle, तो उसका कौन सा engine support होना चाहिए. Obviously it will start with your three-wheelers and two-wheelers, but it'll vary, and it has already started for commercial four-wheelers and even your buses, and it'll start in passenger four-wheelers also, and then there'll be a lot of push with all the subsidies and everything. So anything with respect to whether it's your battery manufacturing, it's your charging infrastructure, whether it's just data analytics, because EV vehicles generate a lot of data which can go into pricing the premiums for insurance, anything related to that is good. I'd also say financial services, although India काफी आगे है compared to the rest of the globe. I think India is one of the best fintech markets globally, and because of India's stack, if you guys know, which has Aadhaar, KYC, DigiLocker, your UPI. Because of that digital architecture, fintech companies find it much easier to build on top of that digital architecture. So that's why fintech is just, uh, going very very crazily. But वहाँ पे क्रॉस बॉर्डर पेमेंट्स में काफी लोगों का इंटरेस्ट है, बिकॉज क्रॉस बॉर्डर पेमेंट्स अभी भी बहुत आदम जमाने के हैं. So yeah, I think fintech of course, but within fintech also cross border payments is very exciting. EV, clean tech in general, and AI. Yeah.
Great, great. And Apoorva, because you've recently unlocked so much global exposure, and you're all over the news for people who can follow. Uh, Regions. What apart from I'm sure India is a double down story or a double click story, and everybody who comes to me and says I would want to go to Canada or I would want to go to London or I would want to go to Australia, I spend 15-20 minutes with them trying to tell them of why probably it's not the best decision in 2013 or in 2014. So what regions do you think? So a lot of people would still not want to be around in India because of various factors. Can't. But apart from because you are also now in on two territories, or you're also looking at two territories. What other regions, or what are the few regions you think everybody should explore? For example, I generally do this. So I did a small promise to myself that I'll not never go on a without work. I'll not travel because there was so much expense that everybody else in my generation was doing for travel. So I said, if I have to spend so much money, I'll make sure कोई ना कोई काम हो वहाँ पे. So hence there are cities where I've never been to in my life where the world goes, but I've never been because I've never been able to find work there, or I've never been able to find a purpose to go to those cities. So what do you think are some regions that we should at least explore? So let's say tomorrow I want to go on a vacation and I say, okay, this might be structurally or strategically a good place to just see and witness. What's your take on that?
I think Middle East. Middle
I
East is just they are diversifying from the oil economy. There is a lot of push to make sure that you have exposure in other sectors which contribute to your GDP. If you go to say Dubai or Saudi or Abu Dhabi, you will see so much welcoming from them. Of course, tax nahi hai wahan pe, so you will save a lot of tax. If anybody wants to, work out of those regions, it is tax free. You will save a lot of money. They pay very well because anyway वहाँ पे बहुत पैसा है और अभी उनको दूसरे sectors में घुसना है. So you will see a significant difference in what, for somebody who wants to work there, the same work profile will have I would say 2x, 3x difference in terms of uh, the compensation, plus it's tax free. So I'd say Middle East, yeah,
Okay, great. So India and Middle East,
India and Middle East, yes.
great. And one last is, I mean, on this particular theme, one last is what strategies do you think are right there? So by strategies, I don't mean sectors or industries. By strategies, I mean, for example, venture debt is a strategy. It might look like an industry, but technically it's a problem solving thing. So what problem solving strategies do you think are around and will absolutely go bonkers in next couple of quarters or years?
Can you just explain me, Emmanuel, एक बार? What?
Sure. So, for example, venture debt can be looked at as an industry, like, but technically it's a strategy. You always have been lending. Lending is a 500, 600 year old institutionalized business, but venture capital has been almost, I don't know what, 2009, 10 is when venture
Yeah,
capital.
in India, may largely 15 years probably.
15 years probably. Flipkart probably
Yeah,
was
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Flipkart era and that. So we have the PayPal syndicate in US and we have the Flipkart syndicate in India, right? How about a few other strategies? So for example, I'll give you an example. So co-working space is, for example, a strategy, or so basically an idea that will just go bonkers. I know it's I've caught you. I might have caught you out of nowhere on this,
I'll
but
have to think about it,
okay.
actually. Um,
Any new pitch decks that you're getting that you saw and you were like, oh, this is amazing. I don't want you to name the business, of course, but you said, oh, this sounds really good, unless you've signed an NDA with them, or anyone who's conversed with you and then you were like, oh, this sounds really amazing.
So, Abhi, honestly, we've talked about AI and this and that, but I think even in genomics, काफी काम हो रहा है.
Yes,
And आजकल, लोग अपना, and we are actually doing one deal where you can, just give your blood sample and they'll give you your entire, you know,
genetical code and
genetical
should
code.
you eat, what should you
Yes.
not
And
eat,
also, what do they call it? These bioindicators or
yeah,
biomarkers, which can also
biomarkers.
tell you that आगे जाके तुम्हें क्या प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है.
What type of vaccinations should you be taking?
And what your body could have an allergic reaction to and things like that. So I think वहाँ पे that's a very unexplored space. इंडिया में कौन कर रहा है इतना research? सब वही plain vanilla कर रहे हैं. So that is a very big market. The company is actually doing very well. They are profitable because
Absolutely.
there's hardly any supply. So if you are one of those key differentiated players, then for sure.
Yeah. So we are also consulting. We've just started consulting a business that is trying to create blood in lab, and they're trying to create an
And
I think
also plasma in labs.
plasma in lab. Yeah, and they have done it successfully in one of their labs in US, and now they're looking forward to scale it across.
एंड
And
आई
they've
थिंक प्लाज्मा भी इंडिया में सिर्फ 3 प्लेयर्स हैं जो प्लाज्मा बनाते हैं, बाकी सब इम्पोर्ट होता है. तो वो सब काफी नीच सेक्टर्स हैं जहां आप काफी कर सकते हो. एक और सेक्टर विच आई थिंक ऑफ इज using natural fibers and say bagasse for various products. Like we are doing a company, we are investing in a company which makes today they make like cutlery and you know cups and plates, etc. But they're also entering kitchen towels and toilet papers and then diapers and then pads and so many other things. And jahan pe bhi essentially you can reduce the use of single-use plastic,
Hmm.
any kind of packaging, just anything. I think that will also be a big thing because अब plastic कोई नहीं use करने वाला. In the next 10 years, the world will be very different.
hope so.
Hope so, yeah.
Great, great. Thank you. And I'm sorry if that question was off guard.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. And one last thing from my end, and then probably we will ask people in the audience or people on the call to go ahead and speak freely if they would wish to. Uh, Apurva, for somebody, you've almost spent on an average 2 years in every organization that you've been a part of. A lot of times people, because I've helped so many people get placed in so many organizations across, uh, people come to me and I would not say complain is the right word, but they express their dissatisfaction regarding the particular role that they're in, and they think that there is some other fancy role out there that's stalking them, and the moment they resign, that fancy role would show up, or the moment they look out, the fancy role would show up. And I have personally been of a very different mindset, and I hope you're also from the same uh, genre, where I say जो सामने है वो करते हैं, लाइफ कहीं ना कभी वो मौका दे देगी वो भी करने का जो तुम्हारा मन है करने का. But how do we convince, or how do we tell this to people who are currently in a role but are not satisfied just because they think there is some other role that is a rock star role as compared to what they do?
So I'd say grass is always green on the other side. Hamesha, you will feel that somebody else has it better or some job profile is better. But trust me, ऐसा कोई job profile नहीं है जो तुम्हें लगे कि अब मैं जिंदगी भर यही रहूंगा या रहूंगी. So I think it is, and I agree, whatever opportunity is with you, do justice to it. Whatever you can learn from it, just learn. And as long as you're learning, there will be opportunities where you will shift and where you will like it so much that you'll probably not want to change very quickly. And then you stay there for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever is the time frame. So ऐसा कोई I would say formula नहीं है कि इसी टाइप के जॉब प्रोफाइल में घुसना चाहिए. जहां जो है As long as you're learning enough from it, stay there. There will be a point when you feel that it's becoming too repetitive and your learning has completely stagnated. The first thing would be that उसी organization में क्या कोई और profile है जहां तुम्हें वो incremental learning मिल सकती है. And if the answer is yes, go and speak to whoever it is that you need to speak to for that switch, because any organization would want to retain a good talent. And if you feel that that organization itself has nothing more to offer, then of course keep looking. But till the time you are there, don't think that something else is just better because of the show of it. Once you've tried and tested and absorbed this completely, then make your opinion. ठीक है, इससे मैंने सब सीख लिया है, इसमें और ग्रो करने की कैपेसिटी नहीं है, मेरा मैनेजर भी वही काम करेगा जो मैं अभी आज कर रहा हूँ, तो यहाँ जाके भी कोई फायदा नहीं है. Then is probably the right time to think about other opportunities.
Yeah. And just an extension to this, when does one know that it's time to quit corporate or it's time to quit being an employee and be an entrepreneur? Or, I love the term intrapreneur, where everybody in the organization should be one, of course. Extreme ownership is what everybody should demonstrate. That's my belief. बहुत मुश्किल है ऐसे लोग ढूंढ पाना, and I think you and I are both looking out for such people, and we have a 0-day turnaround for people who can show entrepreneurship as an opportunity for us. But when does one know that it's time to quit and either be an entrepreneur or one realizes that they're an entrepreneur material?
So, before an entrepreneur, I think you have to become an intrapreneur, because there are a couple of things that you can inculcate in yourself. Because ऐसे लगता है कि founder बन जाएंगे, but बहुत courage चाहिए. The ability to digest a lot of rejections, the ability to bounce back, keep focusing on the positives, just get up every day and think that aaj अच्छा करेंगे. I think that does not come from an employee mindset anyway. If you feel I'm an employee लेकिन मेरा खुद का होगा तब मैं अलग behave करूंगा, will not happen at all. So once you, and so it's important to inculcate those founder traits, and once those are inculcated, you're already an entrepreneur, and then you can take that call कि ठीक है, अब so that is on the traits. But of course you should have a certain financial backing. You should know that I have these many, say, years of savings, so I can take that call and plunge into it. I'll give myself 1 or 2 years, see how it goes, and if nothing works out, then I'll come back. So I think in terms of financial stability, that, and in terms of even bigger than that financial stability is your mindset, which takes a long time to get into. The ownership, how do you treat people, how will you structure your organization, all of those things. I mean, if you have already inculcated it, you are an entrepreneur. And even if you look at data, you will see a lot of people, say from Flipkart or Myntra, who led the teams, like who grew the company from X to Y basis their leadership. They came out and then VCs backed them because they knew what their contribution was in that organization. A random employee coming from a big organization and starting will never get that heft. But अगर तुमने किसी कंपनी में actually कुछ बहुत amazing किया है for the growth, people will know it and they'll back you for that. Plus, you will also be able to poach some of the people you have worked with because they know that you are a good leader.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. One last question from me, Apoorva, and then I'll hand you over to the rest of the people on the call. Where do you invest and how do you invest?
So, honestly, in terms of my personal capacity, I think my net worth is a small base. So it's not very high because obviously, it's been just about 4 years in Stride Ventures and I've grown through the hierarchy. So it's not that I had the wherewithal to do it early in my life. So yeah, but I have 1 or 2 private market spaces. Investment, Emmanuel, you're already aware of a big investment of mine, where I am personally very bullish about. So I have a couple of private market investments where I have control, visibility on what is happening at the ground level, because I now have the liberty to know which companies I'll have that visibility in. So that, and then obviously I have invested in the fund. So I am in Stride Fund 2. fund 1, also in fund 3, and then whatever is left is in mutual funds.
Okay, great. Index funds, if I'm not wrong.
Some index, some just
Some
general.
active.
Yeah, yeah.
Great, great, great. Great. So that's all from my end. And I hope there are more people who would want to quickly ask point blank questions if they are. Please feel free to unmute. I think this is one of
Prashant, yeah.
opportunities to talk to Purva. She's very difficult to get hold of, by the way. I have waited days for rewards, but yeah, I think people, if there is anything you would want to ask, please feel free. And while people are framing or while people are going there, Apurva, you just mentioned that control. So I think one reason I also started. So I used to hate private markets. I don't know if I ever told you this. I used to hate private markets because I thought so much burn and no free cash flow and all those Warren Buffett reasons, right? And then I realized that probably if everybody else is doing it, I should try. And then I saw you, I saw Ishpreet, I saw so many other people who've been doing it very successfully, and I realized that the risk is the uncertainty, that we all have, and the uncertainty can be reduced by effort. So if
Yeah.
I'm at close to the operator or I'm at an operator level, and if I can make sure I bring business to the startup that I'm investing in, or I can connect the startup to a VC or a VD or an angel that can turn around the story, or I can ideate a new product or a new story for the business. I have more control as compared to me investing in, let's say, uh, Tata Technologies, which is the hottest stock of the day, and say, okay, I've invested there, and now I will get a return. Do you also have a similar thought process where you think,
Yeah. So see the return, right? A Tata Technologies probably will give you a 15-20% whatever yearly return. If best, I mean, at some point, it'll stop, it'll go back to 10, 11, 12% maybe. But this can give you a 3x, 4x, 5x kind of return in that same period of time. So, of course, anybody who designs their IPS, your investment statement, you have to decide that big portion of my money is in public markets. Everybody does that. एक छोटा सा पोर्शन होना चाहिए जिसमें रिस्क वेट ज्यादा है, एंड अगर तुम वो छोटा सा पोर्शन डाल रहे हो जहां तुमको डिस्प्रपोर्शनेट रिटर्न्स मिलने की प्रोबेबिलिटी है, वहां पे तुम रिस्क कैसे कम कर सकते हो? इफ देर इज अ फाउंडर दैट आई नो, अ सेक्टर दैट आई नो कि ग्राउंड लेवल पे क्या चल रहा है, आई हैव फुल कंट्रोल ऑन व्हाट द बिजनेस इज डूइंग. सो what better than that? This is the segment of the disproportionate return of your wealth, and that too in a company where that uncertainty is less, because otherwise उस छोटे चेक साइज में वो बिल्कुल ही ब्लैक बॉक्स होता है. कोई बिल्कुल जीरो विजिबिलिटी होती है. If you ever invest through an angel syndicate, you will get nothing from that company. You will never know what is happening. You will never get a call with the founder. It's just a black box. You will be the last person to know. But अगर ऐसा है, then of course it gives me comfort. Yes.
makes sense? Great, thank you, Purva. Guys, anyone, anything, please feel free. Chat box, voice, unmute. You wanna make sure you have your video on and you would want to show Purva. Introduce yourself to Purva. Please feel free. This is the time. Yeah,
Uh,
Moksh.
Hi Apoorva, I'm
Hi.
Mox. Yes, it was really nice hearing your inputs, and something that I would like to know is I understand how a PMS fund works. मुझे पता है कि वो 2% management fees है, 10% success fee है, and how the money comes and how it goes. But how does that happen in a debt fund? Because I think there's a fixed cost of capital. Then when we can lend also, there'll be a cap to it. So I think your returns are capped as well. एंड हाउ डज द इक्विटी किकर ऑप्शन प्लेज इन, और वो रिटर्न्स कैसे हम कैलकुलेट करते हैं? तो बेसिकली पैसा कहाँ आता है, कैसे जाता है, एंड अ डेट फंड हाउ डज इट अर्न?
ठीक है, तो अब डेट फंड में भी बहुत अलग अलग टाइप के डेट फंड्स होते हैं मोक्ष. इफ यू लुक एट डेट फंड, यू विल हैव अ स्पेशल सिचुएशंस फंड जो डिस्ट्रेस्ड एसेट फंड कहते हैं. यू विल हैव अ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फंड जो रोड टोल्स वगैरह में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, ब्रिजेस. यू विल हैव से रीट और रियल एस्टेट फंड जो सिर्फ रियल एस्टेट में इन्वेस्ट करता है. फिर यू विल गेट अ परफॉर्मिंग क्रेडिट फंड जो एसएमई, एमएसएमई, स्ट्रक्चर्ड क्रेडिट में इन्वेस्ट करता है. एंड देन यू हैव venture debt, right? Venture debt is for new age businesses. So within debt funds also, I think there are various types of funds. Broadly structure same रहता होगा, but कुछ nuances भी हैं. So I'll tell you venture debt specifically. So essentially क्या होता है कि इसमें दो component of return होते हैं तुम्हारे. एक होता है तुम्हारा regular coupon bearing loan जिससे तुम्हारा debt IRR बनता है in any company, and then you get warrant upside. So let me give you an example. Suppose I have given a 10 crore loan to a company which is today valued at 100 crores or 200 crores say. So this 10 crore I have given for a period of 18 months. I get my interest on a monthly basis. I get my principal on a monthly basis, quarterly basis. Generally, I lend for 18 months door to door. I get my debt IRR, which is roughly about 16%. As part of my commercial consideration, 10% of the debt sanction worth of options I get in this company, call option. So warrant कहते हैं, but वो होता essentially call option है. So essentially मैंने 10 करोड़ दिए थे, मुझे एक मेरा जो डेट आ रहा है 16% वो तो बना, मैंने मैनेजमेंट फी हटाया 2%, 14% मैंने एलपीज को रिटर्न कर दिया. ठीक है, मेरा हर्डल 11 है, बट वी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट अराउंड 14. बट ऑन द कॉल ऑप्शन मेरे पास 1 करोड़ का ऑप्शन है. आज कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन 200 करोड़ है. दिस वारंट आई होल्ड फॉर अ पीरियड ऑफ 8 years. Suppose, which is way higher than my debt tenor. It outlives my tenor of the debt. Suppose 3 साल बाद कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन 200 से 600 करोड़ हो गई है, तब मेरा 1 करोड़ का ऑप्शन वर्थ 3 करोड़ है. उस टाइम पे मैं कहूंगी कि अब मुझे एग्जिट करना है. तो ये लो मेरा 1 करोड़, मैंने एग्जिट किया 3 करोड़ में. उसके पहले मैंने पैसे नहीं दिए. इट वॉज जस्ट एन ऑप्शन. इट हैज ओनली अपसाइड. By the definition of call option, it has no downside, right?
Right.
So जब मुझे एग्जिट करना होगा तो जो वैल्यूएशन की मूवमेंट हुई है वो गेन मुझे मिल जाएगा. तो मैंने 1 करोड़ दिए, 3 करोड़ लिया, 2 करोड़ का गेन था जो मैंने अपने एलपी को पास कर दिया. एट अ फंड लेवल ओवरऑल, बिकॉज ऐसा नहीं है कि तुमने हर कंपनी में तुम्हारा कॉल ऑप्शन मटीरियलाइज करे तुमको गेन दे, इज नॉट नेसेसरी. Say 30% of your call options will materialize, but it'll give you a good gain, right? Because उसमें मेरा पैसा नहीं है, it is just pure upside.
Right.
So at a fund level, we largely track what we have demonstrated in Fund 1 and Fund 2 is a 22% gross return, which is inclusive of your warrant upside. इसका split होता है 16 debt का और 6% तुम पकड़ लो warrant upside का at a fund level, call option upside. Net basis पे we are at 18%, 18, which is a mixture of 14% debt that goes to investors on a quarterly basis. वो में हम reinvest नहीं करते, जो interest आता है वो पास हो जाता है और खाली मैनेजमेंट फी हटा करके वापस कर देते हैं. और बैलेंस 4-5% तुमको वारंट अपसाइड का मिलता है. तो इसीलिए वो मैथ वैसे बनती है.
Understood. Thank you.
Thanks.
Guys, a lot of people, even in the middle and the senior management, don't understand this, especially when it comes to venture debt, because in equity, especially PMS and Cat 3 AIF, it's very easy. When it comes to Cat 2 and Cat 1 AIF, the cash flows become really, really tedious. And thanks to Apoorva, she's taught me, and now she's taught Moksha as well. But anything else? Rakshit, you had something to ask if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Hi, Manuel first, and hi to Miss Apoorva.
Hi, Rakshit.
Actually, I am a second year BA student, and I wanted to know how to enter private equity because I have no idea about it, but I am wanting to enter those. But at this point of time, I do not have that much of capital to invest in that market, but I want to know it better. So, if you could let me know a way, if it's through the network, one can get there.
Sure. So Rakshit, basically you want to invest in the unlisted space, right? That is your problem statement, right?
Yes, but as I told you, I do not have that much of
Okay.
capital at this point of time, but I want to learn about it, and I did not found any source about it anywhere. So
Sure. So Rakshit, ये network से ही होगा, because funds की minimum investment 1 crore होती है, which is a AIF regulation as per SEBI. So any category to fund, the minimum, whether it's a venture capital fund, a private equity fund, or a venture debt fund, 1 crore is the minimum check size. But in the VC ecosystem, अगर तुम angel syndicate network के part बन जाते हो, तुम 1 लाख भी डाल सकते हो, 2 लाख भी डाल सकते हो, whatever is the amount that you want to start with, you can start at that. And it could be Let's Venture. You open Let's Venture, you create your profile. You can decide, they keep running syndicates of different deals. You can decide which deal to invest in. Which deal to invest in is itself, a big problem statement, because अगर तुम छोटे capital के साथ start कर रहे हो और तुमने गलत deals में invest कर दिया, तुम्हें बिल्कुल मजा नहीं आएगा. You will withdraw from that sector completely. So it's important that in your first initial few deals, take professional advice on which kind of companies you should invest in. You can speak to Emmanuel. I think he'll be able to help you with that thoroughly. And yeah, through these angel syndicates, किसी का भी तुम part बन जाओ, वहां से तुम छोटे check size में भी you can start investing. You can select which syndicate you want to be a part of. They list down multiple deals that they take up every month. And apart from that, in your private network, you can just speak to a couple of those people जो actively invest करते रहते हैं angel checks के साथ, and then you can participate there.
Also, Rakshit, I think because you said you want to learn, the best is pick up startups that you fancy and just read about their stories. Go look at how Airbnb raised money and who invested and what was the people who rejected Airbnb, what was their thesis, people who invested in Airbnb, what was their thesis. Pick up Facebook, pick up all these different stories that you love and that you've seen, and just go back 10, 15 years and you will know everything that happened with them. I think now there is enough documentation. I'm sure when Apoorva started private markets, there was not enough literature. I think for now, for people like me who are entering this year or entered last year, there is enough literature available. There are enough books. I'll share a list with you. There are enough books and there are enough resources available to just go through case studies and history of what current successful and unsuccessful startups are looking like.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Gyanendra, sir, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, Apoorva. Hi, Manu. Gyanendra. The
Hi, Gyanendra.
question that I have is, so you started 2019 in this current. 1 year later, COVID hits. What goes through the mind of the team? I just want to know that. First reactions and what's your reaction time? How do you come out of it? Whatever.
So, I'd say it was a very tough time for us, because none of us had ever thought of it. Preparation तो बहुत दूर की बात है, कभी सोचा भी नहीं था कि ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है. So when it happened, in April 2020, March 2020, starting में तो लग रहा था that this is a month, 2 month thing and it'll all get lifted, and then it started getting more serious and we didn't know what to do. So of course, during those 3-4 months, we had halted investment because we were not sure of what is going to work, what is not going to work. It was also, we were fairly new, so we could not afford big mistakes. And the second thing, obviously, our fundraising was also slow because people were also on hold. And practically, I don't think we raised any money for 5-6 months straight, because people were like, you can think that everybody was struggling. Family में किसी को, COVID हुआ हुआ है, people are taking care of it. There's no house help. How will you go and pitch? You are not meeting anybody in person. So I think first 6 months, starting March, we were not able to raise anything. And then, once things, and we were not even trying because it was a waste. फिर सितंबर अक्टूबर के बाद हमने पिकअप किया, तो बीच में हमारा फंडरेजिंग काफी स्लो था फंड 1 का, because we had raised substantial amount in 2019, but then we didn't close the fund. So we had to close the fund in January or February 2021, because जो balance part था जो हमें raise करना था, वो हमने 6 महीने कुछ raise ही नहीं किया. So it was a slow process for people to, come on Zoom to start discussing about investment opportunities and all of that. And it was slow from disbursement also, because we didn't know which company to fund, which not to fund. On the hindsight, COVID was actually good for the startup ecosystem, largely. Because जितने D2C brands थे, उन्होंने incumbent traditional players से market share ले लिया. एक टाइम था जब हमने शुगर कॉस्मेटिक्स को करीब मई 2020 में फंड किया था. उस समय सब यही कह रहे थे that who is going to wear lipstick, अंडर द मास्क, ये कब तक चलेगा, कैसे कर सकते हो आप इस सेक्टर में. एंड आई थिंक उस समय लैक्मे का एनुअल टर्नओवर 1,000 crores था. सो पीपल वर सेइंग कि ये इंडस्ट्री इतना छोटा है, इसका जो सबसे बड़ा प्लेयर है वो 1,000 crore पर एनम में, आप कैसे किसी प्लेयर को बैक कर सकते हो. जस्ट लुक एट द ट्रांजिशन ऑफ डायरेक्ट टू कंज्यूमर ब्रांड्स फ्रॉम 2020 to now. They have taken market share everywhere, whether it's beauty and personal care, whether it's footwear, apparel, just anything. Because that 18 months gave that fillip to the new age businesses, which they never got. Because traditional companies hadn't figured out supply chain, did not have that tech presence. बहुत सारा market share shift हो गया to consumer brands. Same thing, for consumer tech. People were ordering on Zomato, Swiggy, Zepto, Blinkit. All of these came in 2021 only. Actually, a result of COVID. अगर कोविड नहीं होता तो ये सब बिजनेस मॉडल्स इमर्ज ही नहीं करते. फिर लोग एडिक्टेड हो गए, अब कन्वीनियंस सीख करते हैं, तो अब अच्छा कर रही हैं. बट आई से लुक एट एडटेक, हेल्थ टेक, all of these mushroomed during COVID. It's a different story that edtech is now where it was earlier. But the, I would say, mindset change for people to adopt new things happened in 2020. So for the startup ecosystem in general, it was good because most startups are asset light, more online than offline. Of course, some of them got impacted. We were also going slow before we found out kya chal raha hai, kya nahi chal raha hai. But yes, it was a disruption clearly for us.
Great.
Cool, thank you. The key thing is that I think it made a large part of the sector much stronger and
Yes.
advantage to the online because we could figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there's a question from Sahil.
Yeah, it's quite a long question. I think the first is on how do you ensure conflict of interest with in terms of risk attribution. I think you already answered that, but anything else that you would want to add, Apurva? The debt versus equity, how do you ensure that there is a
So
conflict of
काफी clear है that debt equity के पहले ही आता है. And while we have to work closely, but you have to make sure that debt and risk equity का risk profile काफी अलग है. So debt, you have to follow a normal distribution. All my returns should be in that same bucket. And equity, as everybody knows, a power law. So one good decision will take care of 20 bad decisions, which is not possible in debt.
Absolutely. The second is, based on alternate investment assets, they take so much long to. So, for example, a VC fund would take so long to deploy. I think what Sahil is asking is it easier on the VD to deploy because you already have a list of all VC backed companies and you just can give a lot of capital there. Is that how it is? Right?
It's true that it's easier for us to source deals because we already know which companies have raised equity, so that funneling is already done for us. And then of course we have filtering criteria that you should be at least 2-3 crores of monthly revenue, you should have raised so much in equity capital, you should be backed by so and so fund. So it does a lot of filtering for us.
Yeah. Apurva, I don't know this, and I'm asking, do we also tag along with other VCs? So for example,
we do.
Okay.
बहुत बार हम मतलब कई बार राउंड के बाद भी आते हैं, बट कई बार राउंड के साथ भी आते हैं.
So I think that's a natural market in itself.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Amazing.
I think adding on to what you just said कि जब हमारा normal distribution return कब होता है, तो if let's say a company goes through a distressed time, उस समय हम उसको sell off तो कर सकते हैं, और I mean there are many ways to take care of that, but are there any filters that you have built by seeing those companies? क्या now if my screen appears कि अगर ये वाला filter या ये metric खराब है, तो what are those filters? तो अगर if you could tell me that.
So वो काफी एक्सटेंसिव सब्जेक्ट है मोक्ष, उसमें कितनी सारी चीजें हैं जो तो देखते हो, हर सेक्टर की अलग चीजें हैं. So for me to tell you just one thing is difficult. There are multiple, there could be founder red flags. Founder ने ये बोल दिया तो भाई मत जाओ इसके पीछे. So there could be founder red flags. There could be business model red flags that that something doesn't work. If they're doing something a certain way, doesn't work. There could be so many things with respect to corporate governance, audit, corporate structure, hierarchy, when it will not work. Or मतलब मैं simple answer दूँ तो contribution margin 2. which is essentially defined as your margin after you have taken care of your cost of goods sold, logistics, marketing. अगर उसके बाद आप पैसा बना रहे हो, तब even if you are negative at an EBITDA level, it's fine. Because fundamentally your unit economics are making sense. आप कहीं आगे जाके profitable बन जाओगे once your CM2 is enough to take care of your fixed cost overhead. But अगर आपका CM2 ही negative है या ग्रॉस मार्जिन नेगेटिव है या आपको पता ही नहीं कि आगे जाके आप, कई ऐसी कंपनीज हैं जैसे जिसको हमने नहीं इन्वेस्ट किया बट शेयर चैट ये वो दुनिया भर की कंपनीज जो ये दिखाती थी मेरा फुटफॉल इतना है, मेरा डेली एक्टिव यूजर ये है, मंथली एक्टिव यूजर ये है, मैं आगे जाके एड रेवेन्यू कमाऊंगा. तो वैसी कंपनीज को हम नहीं करते अंडरराइट, क्योंकि कैसे करोगे तुम, मुझे ही नहीं पता वो आगे जाके कैसे किसको मोनेटाइज करके क्या रेवेन्यू कमाएगा. So
It's more
from
storytelling.
the perspective, it could be very exciting. If I tell you that this is going to be the next Instagram or next WhatsApp, somebody can become very excited about that. This is for building for Bharat and all of that. But from a debt perspective, obviously, it's a strict no-go for us.
Understood.
Okay. So one last question, I think, and then we can call it off. I've never kept Apoorva for so long, but finally the opportunity today. The question I think is from Utkarsh, and he's saying he's a CFA level 2 candidate and he wants to know of whether investment banking or private equity. I think private equity is a part of investment banking. Apoorva, any
नहीं,
thoughts?
so देखो इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग में 5 चीजें आती हैं. मर्जर्स एंड एक्विजिशन, तुम्हारा डेट कैपिटल मार्केट्स विच इज एसेंशियली बॉन्ड इशुएंसेस, फिर तुम्हारा आईपीओ मार्केट विच इज इक्विटी कैपिटल मार्केट्स, एंड फिर उसमें जनरली प्रोजेक्ट फाइनेंस भी इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग में ही आता है. प्राइवेट इक्विटी अलग है. प्राइवेट इक्विटी अलग है. प्राइवेट इक्विटी में जैसे वीसी है, वीसी इज बेसिकली अर्ली स्टेज कंपनी जहाँ कंपनी फिगर आउट कर रही है, प्रोडक्ट मार्केट फिट बहुत अर्ली है, थोड़ा पैसा रेज किया है. यही वीसी तो है एंजल, फिर तुम्हारे एक्सेलरेटर्स आ सकते हैं, फिर तुम्हारा से सीड राउंड आ सकता है, सीरीज ए बी सी डी जो भी है, इसमें सब वेंचर कैपिटल इन्वेस्टर्स आ गए. फिर तुम्हारा जब तुम लेट स्टेज हो जाते हो, मान लो प्री आईपीओ या सीरीज डी सी, उस स्टेज में तुम्हारे प्राइवेट इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर्स आते हैं. तो प्राइवेट इक्विटी इज मच लेटर स्टेज वेयर द कंपनी इज मोस्टली ऑलवेज प्रॉफिटेबल एंड वहां पे थोड़ा तुम्हारा हार्ड एसेट भी ज्यादा है. So you will see a lot of private equity investors in hospital chains and जहाँ पे educational institutes and all of that, because वहाँ पे VC का कुछ नहीं है. VC is always prefer asset light, more tech. जहाँ पे तुम्हारा hard asset ज्यादा है, company profitable हो गई है. So either it's in the nature of the business or the stage of investment where private equity comes in. So which is better is very difficult. If you ask me, private equity is better because I've seen investment banking and I know कि वहां पे ना तुम डिसीजन मेकर हो. वो कहते हैं ना बेगानी शादी में अब्दुल्ला दीवाना, तो वो है इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग कि तुम पिच कर रहे हो, ना तुम्हारी कंपनी है ना तुम्हारा पैसा है. So तुम बस बीच में हो, तुम ये डील स्टिच कर रहे हो. बट having said that, investment banking is a great career option for a lot of people. It's personal choice what you like doing, what you don't like doing. Investment banking has a lot of money, big fat bonuses, probably better than private equity in some cases. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think by private equity market, I think Utkarsh meant everything, venture capital, venture.
Oh,
if I'm
हाँ. So वो भी बहुत personal question है. What do you like investing in? Investment banking could also be in unlisted markets as Emmanuel. वहां पे Emmanuel फिर overlap है, क्योंकि तुम investment banking भी अगर तुम private sector के लिए कर रहे हो तो फिर वो same है. But otherwise, you could do investment banking for a listed company also.
Absolutely. Okay, so Ananya, one last question, but over to you.
Hi, Apoorva, Ananya here. So
Hi.
I work with along with Emmanuel and take care of public markets, and you know how fairly easy it is to get hands on the database for the public markets, right? Like we have screener and money control. Are there any platforms, or maybe you could recommend any platforms that where we can access the data for the private markets?
Traction, Ananya. Traction is, I would say, the only database which has a lot of information in the Indian context. For US companies, is Crunchbase, PitchBook, but I think for Indian companies, Traction is your best database.
Okay. Thank you so much.
But trust me when I tell you, Apoorva, I'm sure, goes through annual reports and annual books of the
Of
companies
course.
like you do, Ananya, when it comes to public
Yeah.
markets.
But that, of course, you have to ask the company, or then you can also pull it from the MCA.
MCA,
Traction is for your basic screening.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you've screened, then of course you will have to go back to MCA and download 3 years of books or 2 years of books and things like that. हाँ, आपको एजीएम रिपोर्ट और डायरेक्टर्स कमेंट्स और वो सब नहीं मिलेगा प्राइवेट मार्केट में, वो आपको खुद इंटरव्यू करना पड़ेगा सारे लोगों का. But I think it's a fairly more difficult task
Yeah,
than
yeah. वो डिफिकल्ट तो है ही, वहाँ डेटा मिलना इतना इजी नहीं है. Yeah.
but I think traction will help. So by the way, Apurva, Ananya is a big fan of yours, and don't yeah, I had to spill that bean. She probably admires you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Emmanuel.
Yeah. Okay, great. So anyone else, anything else? If not, uh, I think I should just conclude. Thank you, Apurva. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thanks,
And
everyone.
we hope that probably some other day, some other time, we all can meet you in person. Uh,
Likewise.
yeah, and thank you so much for today. I think it'll really help a lot of us who are looking forward for some motivation, inspiration, and some guidelines.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.